Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a live Manchester United news show. This is a massive news show with exclusive news coming in from me. That's not come out yet, but it does correlate with some news that has recently come out. Now, you know me, I want Ten Hag to be given time. I think there's so many issues at Manchester United that I feel like changing the manager doesn't fix multiple issues yet, and it'd be nice to actually give a manager more than 2 years. But with 11 losses this season, despite the injury crisis, that is unacceptable for a team like Manchester United. And if INEOS do decide to sack Ten Hag, ultimately I can understand the decision. Personally, myself, I wouldn't sack Ten Hag for Zerbi, but that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video because we've got some very, I'd say, credible information coming in that Zerbi is the guy lined up to replace Ten Hag, and very, very worrying news I've got on Ten Hag's future that I do want to get into, you guys. You know, we're not here to talk about what I would do. We're here to talk about what INEOS are going to do, what the news is. So, personally, I wouldn't replace Ten Hag with Zerbi, but this is looking like the most likely scenario after the news that we've got today. So we're back with an exclusive. We haven't done an exclusive for a while on the channel, apart from when we spoke about the Ten Hag wanting someone to help with injuries. And then we did one on Pavard, which was then confirmed by Romano 2 days later. So, you know, we're back with an exclusive, we're back with some info, but also we're going to get into just general info around Manchester United, the manager situation. We're going to dive into all the news for you guys. So please hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video and all of that stuff. We're going to start with a little bit of context about the news, and then I'm going to dive into the news and information that I have been given. Is the screen shared? Is that up? Yes, it is. So the screen wouldn't share for a second there, so I do apologise with you guys as well. No, his work is beyond repair, but not Zerbi get other manager as well. Zerbi got pumped 4-0 by Luton. Once we get into news, we have a conversation. Personally, wouldn't get Zerbi. I do think Zerbi's a good manager, and I am intrigued to see how he would do at a big club. But personally, myself, I wouldn't go for Zerbi. I think it's a bit of a risk, and I don't know if we're in a position when we could afford to take risks when we've got to change so much as well. So let's get into the news. Let's get into the info, okay? And then I'll give you a bit of context. So this isn't my news. This is just general news that has come out that aligns with some information that I've been told earlier today. And this was just general news to give you context. From the Disco Mirror, it was said that Erik Ten Hag has been given no assurances he will remain as Manchester United boss beyond this summer, and representatives and managers have now put their clients in the frame for Manchester United job should Ten Hag be sacked at the end of the season. There's very little clarity, and we're going to talk about this in a second. I've got some information on this. There's very little clarity around Ten Hag and his future. INEOS could be in a position where they'll come out and say that Ten Hag is going to be manager next season. They've not done that, and understandably, because maybe he's not going to be. Maybe they haven't made their decision, and it's very early to say that as well. So I understand that, but that has created a lot of insecurity around Ten Hag. More reports, Anil from Talk Sport said that Manchester United are increasingly likely to part ways with Ten Hag at the end of the season. And Mike McGrath did say, and he's a very good journalist, that Manchester United are weighing up Ten Hag's future. Now, there has been reports coming out that it's looking more like a 70-30 to Ten Hag staying or going. 70 that it's going to go, it's looking increasingly likely. As I've said myself, so many issues at this club. I'd like to see Ten Hag given time. I'd like to sort of get the players out, get the structure changed, see how Ten Hag does under a good board. But it's looking more and more likely that this isn't good. It's not saying that he is going to go. I'm not saying that he is going to go, but it's looking increasingly likely. The Zerbi news that I wanted to get into, and then I'm going to get into my news just to give you guys some context, was it was said today by Mike McGrath that Manchester United or other clubs looking at Roberto Zerbi as a potential next manager will have to pay a compensation of $12 million to secure him from Brighton this summer. Zerbi has admirers at Manchester United. We know that. Now, some bit of context on Zerbi and Manchester United, which I think also further backs up why INEOS are particularly interested in Zerbi, is that Nice employs former goalkeeping coach. Nice have employed former coaches of Zerbi, INEOS Nice, INEOS Manchester United. Berardi had Zerbi down in his plans as a potential Pep replacement. Berardi has now gone to United, but Ashworth, when Potter was at Brighton, also had names of potential people that they would keep an eye on in case Potter left Brighton, and Zerbi was one of those. So Zerbi has been approved by Ashworth, Berardi, and INEOS in the past. So it obviously makes him a very, very strong candidate for the Manchester United job. We will have a conversation about Zerbi in a second, but I want to dive into the news. So before I get into my exclusive information on Zerbi, I did speak to someone that I trust, in terms of sources of information, hence why I put exclusive in the video. And they said no decision has been made on Ten Hag's future, but there has been reports from those close to Ten Hag that he's very much doubting that he will be at United next season. Reportedly, those close to Ten Hag say the manager has admitted he's having doubts that he's going to be at the club next season. INEOS haven't given him much reassurances, and there's a feeling from Ten Hag and his agency that he might have to start looking elsewhere for a job next season. So that's particularly worrying, but again, not confirmation, not yet that's happening, nothing like that. Just there's a feeling, there's a strong feeling. There was a strong feeling that we were going to go and sign Rasmus Hojlund. We did sign Rasmus Hojlund, but there was a strong feeling we were going to sign De Jong and we didn't. So you know what I mean about strong feeling. But I wanted to get into sort of the info that I was given in terms of De Zerbi to United. So this was some of the information that I was given. So I was essentially told that De Zerbi is among those most appreciated by those in the INEOS setup. So he's probably the manager most appreciated by those at INEOS. Ashraf and Barada would likely approve of De Zerbi, and it's looking increasingly likely that he's the top contender to replace Ten Hag if he leaves. Liverpool and Chelsea are watching De Zerbi, so there's no guarantee he'll go to Man United, despite appearing as a recent first choice to replace Ten Hag. And Ten Hag's future hasn't been decided yet, but it's increasingly likely that he will go. So information that I sort of got on De Zerbi was he is INEOS' first choice. If Ten Hag goes, which is looking increasingly likely, he's the guy that INEOS will go for, and INEOS feel comfortable they could beat out Liverpool and Chelsea to that, but there's no guarantee. So that, I think, is definitely one to keep an eye on in regards to De Zerbi to United. Now, I'm really interested to know your thoughts, so do get involved in the live chat as well. And let me know your thoughts. De Zerbi's been getting rinsed this season. Yes, he has. I'm not convinced on De Zerbi, but he did lose his two best midfielders in McAllister and Caicedo and get crap replacements. He also has been hit with an injury crisis. Brighton's injury crisis has been just as bad as ours this season. So I will give him leniency with that. But the thing that worries me about De Zerbi, more than that, because I understand why Brighton aren't doing as well this season. There's every reason for that. Every reason for why Man United aren't doing as well. But the reason I'm concerned is he's got no plan B, De Zerbi. His plan A works, but he's got no plan B. He's a very much, once you figure out how to play against Brighton, he doesn't change it. We complain about Ten Hag and stubbornness. De Zerbi, he's a quite stubborn manager. That's what I worry about. And I think, for me, none of the Ten Hag replacement candidates really stand out. Because Nagelsmann, I really like Nagelsmann, but he plays weird formations. We complain that Bruno's playing left wing, right wing, Rasmus playing striker. Nagelsmann's putting players out of position and playing weird formations. We're not going to like that. De Zerbi's stubborn and has no plan B. We're not going to like that. Potter, first time he went to a big club. Well, I actually do think Potter's a good manager. And I don't think you can fully judge him off what he did at Chelsea because the environment there was awful. And I'm assuming that the environment at Man United won't be awful under INEOS. Potter got swallowed up by a big club, but more importantly, got swallowed up by big names. We've got a dressing room that can swallow up managers. Amorim, I think, is a very, very good manager, but our whole transfer strategy would have to completely change over because he plays three at the back. A lot of players that would be important for us might not be important, like Dalot. He won't suit that football. So will we now have to move on Dalot? Is there too much to do in the summer? I think Thomas Tuchel, I think for me, the style of football he plays and the kind of players he wants, like Eric Dyer, you're not going to like that. So I feel like every candidate to replace Erik Ten Hag has its limitations, but I also think Erik Ten Hag has lost 11 games this season. So if INEOS do want to replace Erik Ten Hag, you can't blame them. But personally, myself, I think I would stick with Ten Hag as well. Hey, Ella, it's good to catch you live. Yeah, big up everybody in the lives. Please do hit the like button to get the live out there and share this because this is an interesting live here as well. Every manager from Move On How and Ollie highlighted how bad the club is run. So solely, we can't keep solely blaming gaffers, 100%. And the main reason I think I've been Ten Hag in, and I said to myself, once Ragnick era really exposed how things bad were, I said to myself, and I made a promise on a live stream, hopefully, I don't know which one it is, so if someone finds it, they find it. But I said, you know what, Ten Hag's coming into Manchester United. We've learned, I wanted Ollie out. I got fed up with Ollie, I wanted Ollie out. And I realised sacking Ollie made no difference. In fact, it made things worse. And I realise that now. Sacking Ollie might have been a mistake. I mean, I think Ragnick coming in opened our eyes up to actually the problem is not Ollie. But I wanted Ollie sacked. And then Ragnick came in and I thought we were going to start playing good football. Ragnick did that for 30 minutes. And then I came to the realisation of, no, this is the players. And then I knew, and everyone knew, that the poor managers, you look at the failed recruitment under Ollie, Haaland, Caicedo, Grealish, Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, Harry Kane. Then I came to the realisation that actually when the recruitment at this club has been so bad, when the environment's been so bad, and when these players have thrown every manager under the bus, and we've changed managers every 2 years, and we keep going in this endless cycle, it can't be the manager anymore. That's my opinion. I don't think Ten Hag is doing great, and I think the football we're watching is absolutely atrocious. But I also know that he was a very good manager at Ajax. He played some good football at Ajax. And we saw when everyone was fit last season, he's capable of, in the first year of his rebuild, getting us third. If everybody is fit and he gets a proper summer and his new signings are allowed to come in and integrate well, next season, for me, he can do well. And I think when there's so much that needs to be changed from just players and structure, is changing the manager, players and structure, doing all that in one window, too much change at once? Do we say, you know what? None of these candidates that we're looking at to replace Ten Hag are like, bosh, get him, super stand out. Should we just give Ten Hag time? That's the question. I mean, I understand if they do want to sack him because the amount of losses we've had this season is unacceptable, but I would like to see Ten Hag given time. I just realised I got a super chat, so big up. Can't believe we're at this point again. Well, hopefully it's not coming to that. Again, as I said, the news very much states it's looking increasingly likely Ten Hag will go, but no decision has been made yet. But Roberto De Zerbi is among top of the list as he's appreciated by all of those at United. Ten Hag may be out of his depth with these injuries and off the pitch drama. He's still most weeks able to put out a good team of internationals. His stats are awful this season, including shots against. And I think the biggest concern for Ten Hag is shots against. Why we right down there with Sheffield United. I think with the injuries we've got and with the players that we've got and with the players' work rate and the players' inability to follow instructions, I think the fact that we are sixth this season isn't too bad. Like when you think of it, which I know sounds like I've lowered my standards massively, but when you look at how good the teams above us have been and the injuries and everything, I think the fact that we're sixth isn't too bad. But I think Newcastle have been better than us this season. I think other clubs have been better than us this season. We're just somehow above them in the league. And that just makes me wonder how sustainable that is. Like finishing sixth isn't awful. Like we shouldn't be finishing sixth. But when you think about how many injuries you've had, how good the other teams above us have been, all the player issues, that the players aren't good enough, and considering that we look like a team that should be finishing 13th, finishing sixth isn't too bad. But I think the biggest concern is we look like a team that could be finishing 13th, 14th and all of that as well. Inzaghi could be one to look at. Inzaghi is one linked to us, but not super reliable as well. If Erik Ten Hag goes Chelsea or Dortmund, we'll see how Erik Ten Hag will strive to. I think Ten Hag would be very good in the Bundesliga. Very, very good in the Bundesliga. Big up everybody in the chat as well. I'd also argue none of the candidates have played exciting football as Erik Ten Hag did at Ajax, perhaps Nagelsmann exactly as well. That's the thing as well. I think the thing is people feel a bit disappointed with Ten Hag because he played this really exciting good football at Ajax, and we're not seeing that at Manchester United. We're not seeing anything like that at Manchester United, and we knew what Ten Hag was capable of doing at Ajax. We saw the good football that Ten Hag was doing at Ajax, and a lot of us here are sitting there thinking, well, when are we going to see this at Manchester United? And I think Ten Hag could be doing better with the players available and the tools that he has. I think, the fact that we conceded the most shots is unacceptable. You've also got to look at it, and you've also got to say, well, actually, Ragnick got this team to play good football for 30 minutes. There's been multiple games where Man United played good football for 20 minutes and they've been crap for 70 minutes. Unfortunately, we just don't have players that are able to play good football for 90 minutes. They can do it for 20 minutes and then they go as well. Alice, what are you looking for specifically for Ten Hag in these last games? Would there be anything Ten Hag could do to make you change your mind on him? I mean, I very much said I want the next Man United manager to be given 3 years regardless of what happens. And I said that before Ten Hag came in, but like when we knew he was coming in, like June time. So I've always sort of stuck with that. I'd like him to be given a third season, a good transfer window. I do think when you're getting dominated by Fulham, even with the injuries we had, that's a concern. I knew we were going to lose to Man City and I knew we were going to get dominated. So as embarrassing as it was, and the fact that we were basically the team that had the least amounts of shots versus Man City in the league this season, I kind of expected that. It's more when you go to Fulham and you're like, yeah, no, we aren't great doing anything versus Fulham. It's difficult because we've got so many players missing, but I think we need to be doing better against those smaller clubs. I think if we basically almost lost every game between now and the end of the season and didn't finish in the top half of the table, I think INEOS would have every right to sack Ten Hag. But look, if we finish sixth, I would keep him. I would, because I think I want the players out, I want the board out, I want the structure out. That's just my opinion, but I'm fed up of changing managers all the time as well. I do want to get into some more news as well. So big up everybody in the chat. What manager was backed and given proper recruitment post Alex Ferguson? Club's been a mess the whole time. And that's another reason why I backed Ten Hag. Who's actually been backed? Who's actually been given this and that post Alex Ferguson? Not really anybody. and no Champions League will see him sat next season. I'm not sure. I think INEOS will just be looking at, from what I hear, INEOS have this way that they want to play. INEOS have this vision and identity of the style of football they want to play. INEOS have an idea of what they want to do. And if they believe that Ten Hag can do that, then I think INEOS will back Ten Hag if they believe that he is capable of doing this with these and those players. I think INEOS are just going to be looking at what can Ten Hag do with these players and what can Ten Hag show more than results. Because I don't think it's about results. I actually think it's about the way that we want to play next season. And if Ten Hag is capable of that and if they believe that, I think they'll be assessing a lot of things. I think Omar Brado and Dan Ashworth will also have a say on that, as well as Brailsford and Blanc. I think they'll be looking at lots of things as well. I'm just going to scroll down as I'm a little bit behind on the live chat as well. Fluker and Zerbi for me. I don't want Super Mario from Brighton to Stretford. If Ten Hag is sacked, who are you bringing in realistically? I think Flick would be good, but I don't know how realistic it is. There is actually some interesting news on Zidane to United that I do want to get into from Ben Jacobs as well. And going for ex-Brighton managers, not solution. Ex-Brighton directors, maybe not managers, says David. I'm interested to see how Zerbi does at a big club because I do think that Zerbi is a good manager, but I don't particularly want him at United. Like, I don't think he would be an awful manager, but I think it's a risk. I think Zerbi is one of those risks where we're not in a position where we can afford to take that risk quite yet. I think, look, if we've had a good summer transfer window, we've got good people coming in, we do good recruitment, and Ten Hag is still not getting the best out of this team in a year's time, then you're in a position where you can say, okay, maybe let's take the risk on Zerbi. But I think there's so much to do this summer that I'm not sure if I want United to be taking any kind of risk. That's sort of the position that I'm at as well. Guys, 177 likes. I'd love to hit 300 likes by the end of the live stream, which is crazy because we've got about 290 people watching. So do hit that like button if you have not already, because we've got an exclusive info coming here, first reported by me. We've still got loads to get to as well. The Zerbi did a good job at Brighton, getting them Europa League. That achievement is incredible. The thing is, what he's done at Brighton is incredible, but it's how you step up from Brighton, how Potter stepped up. Obviously, Chelsea was not a good environment, but Manchester United has been known for not having a good environment. There's multiple things. But then you can say Arsenal took a massive risk on Arteta. It took him 2 seasons of getting things wrong to see how good Arteta is now. If we do bring in Zerbi, it will be a risk, and it will be a risk that we again have to give 2-3 seasons of time to as well. How was Arteta's playing his first 2 seasons at Arsenal? Actually, quite similar to United. Yeah, I think Arsenal, towards the end of their second season, looked a little bit better than we do towards the end of the second season. Like, Ten Hag's first season was better than Arteta's first season in terms of style of football, in terms of results. Ten Hag's second season is gone downhill. Arteta's second season got a little bit better despite finishing in the same position because Arsenal started to play better. So to an extent, Arteta towards the end of his second season was getting a bit more convincing than Ten Hag, but his position in the league didn't say so. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, and maybe this is unpopular opinion here, but I've watched Newcastle play games this season where they've been bad and they've lost. But I've watched Newcastle play a lot of games this season where they have been very, very good. And you can see what Eddie Howe's trying to do. And you can see that when he's got the main bulk of his squad fit, you can beat this team, you can go toe-to-toe with this team. You can see what Newcastle try to do. Newcastle have had a lot more good games than United. Newcastle have been better than Manchester United for a lot of games this season, but they've also had games where they've been bad. But I could see to an extent what Eddie Howe's trying to do with Newcastle, and that's why if I was a Newcastle fan, I wouldn't want Eddie Howe to be sacked. We've not seen that much with Ten Hag. Now, we've had injuries from day dot, unlike Newcastle. Newcastle got injuries from about week 7 or 8. But we've not seen loads. You see a little bit more from other teams, which I can get the criticism of Ten Hag to an extent. Now, continuing on, as we've got loads and loads and loads to dive into as well. I do think that Arteta's second season has been better than Ten Hag's second season in terms of style of play, but first season wasn't. Man United failed to have no use of football, especially if top 5 gets it after season they had last year. Don't know how it goes. Yeah, I think the problem is, if this was Ten Hag's first season, we wouldn't be super worried because we'd know there was problems. And if Ten Hag's second season, he got us into 3rd and won the FA Cup, it would be seen as progress. I think it's the fact that he did so well last season that I think it's more disappointing what we're seeing this season, particularly because of the money spent and it being the second season as well. Mark Ogden came out with 3 managers they're assessing, and Southgate is mentioned. Yeah, luckily Mark Ogden isn't the most reliable source in the world, because if we do go for Southgate, I'll be very disappointed in INEOS. I'll be saying, look, INEOS, I've tried to be as positive as I can about the takeover with, it not being a full sale. But if you bring in Southgate, I'm not backing INEOS and that. Like, Zerbi, I don't want it to happen, but I can get behind it. Southgate, I can't even get behind that. Do you know what I mean? I just can't as well. Ten Hag is a 61% room rate over 100 games. Give him time. So let's get into other information because we've had a little bit of a live chat dig. I want to dive into some other info. It was said by other sources, not my source, but similar stuff to what my source said, that Roberto De Zerbi is under consideration by Sir Jim Ratcliffe to become the next manager of Manchester United should they sack Ten Hag, and that another source said that Roberto De Zerbi is of interest in Man United should they sack Ten Hag, basically regurgitating each other. I noticed that one mid-decent source says one thing, another source says the exact same thing in different words. But the De Zerbi information is reliable. My source said that De Zerbi is currently top of the list of the candidates to replace Erik Ten Hag should Erik Ten Hag be sacked. There's no guarantee that Erik Ten Hag will be sacked, but it's looking increasingly likely that Ten Hag could go and his time is running out. That is the information that I got. It was said by Ben Jacobs that Thomas Tuchel would relish the opportunity to manage Man United. He feels like he has something to prove in England and is disappointed by the manner of his Chelsea departure. Chelsea shouldn't have sacked Tuchel, which again you could say should Man United sack Ten Hag because Chelsea sacking Tuchel made things worse. But going back to that, don't want Tuchel at Manchester United. And I got told info that, INEOS aren't actually considering Tuchel as a candidate. So I don't think it's going to happen. In terms of other Manchester United manager news, it was said that Manchester United have been approached by representatives of several managers believing that Erik Ten Hag could be removed from his post before the start of next season. And according to Ben Jacobs, which I would take this with a massive pinch of salt, I don't think Ben Jacobs is a bad source of information, but I personally don't believe that we will get Zidane. He did say that Zinedine Zidane is highly likely to be on Manchester United's shortlist if they were to sack Ten Hag, and INEOS are well aware of Zidane's capability. So that again was some more info coming out on the manager front. Ten Hag out, Alonso in. Alonso, I believe, will go to Bayern, if not Liverpool. I don't think he's going anywhere near Manchester United. What do I think of Diego Simeone? Not a chance, because INEOS want to play an attacking style of football, and Diego Simeone, good manager, will not suit the Premier League, plays the most defensive football. A lot of fans won't like it. He's very Jose Conte-esque, and I don't think that's going to work in the Premier League. Not saying that he's a bad manager, but I think the way the Premier League's moving, you don't want Simeone as well. Alice, I swear if the Zebra comes in, the same fans wanting him in and he bottles it, they'll want him out. I'm not against another manager coming in, but heck, give Erik Ten Hag time. Do you know what? I agree with that. I think I understand 11 losses this season, and I do understand through stubbornness and tactical flaws why fans want Ten Hag out, and I am not saying that fans shouldn't want Ten Hag out. I'm just saying personally I want Ten Hag and I want him to be given time. But the thing is, the problem with, I think, the fan base to an extent, and this isn't just about wanting Ten Hag out, is I think we're in this social media generation where patience goes. People have got to realise if this is a long-term project, not a short-term project, and this isn't just about Ten Hag, it's about INEOS coming in. Like Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, maybe Doogie Friedman are going to come in and get to work this summer. We might be in a position where we haven't seen much improvement in a year's time. And I guarantee you fans will be turning on Ashworth and De Zerbi, and not De Zerbi, Ashworth and Barada. And it's like, no. And people will be saying Jim Ratcliffe's rubbish because we finished 5th next season. It's like, no. There is so much work to do at United that people have got to realise that this is going to be 3 years until we actually get to a place where we want to be. This could be 3 years. Look at Arteta. First 2 seasons were poor. 3rd season showed progress. 4th and 5th season have been good. Arsenal fans have been happy with him the last 2 seasons, apart from a very minority. You realise that we are a lot worse than you think. You've got to realise, and you've got to remember the context of, we have players that aren't good enough for top 10 Premier League clubs playing regularly for United. We have recruitment people that are idiots. We have so many issues with this club, from players to recruitment to how we operate, that it's not a matter of 1 or 2 transfer windows is going to fix it. It's going to be 3, 4, 5. And we have to, as a fan base, be patient. We either have to, if you want Ten Hag out, that is fine. But if you want Ten Hag out and you're begging for De Zerbi in, and De Zerbi has a crap first season, those fans need to not turn on De Zerbi because he's had a crap first season. Those fans have got to realise that there was reports and fans wanting Fergie out after 2 seasons at Manchester United, and look what Sir Alex Ferguson did. I think the next manager is, we got to back him. I don't care. Unless it's Southgate, because I'm going to have a problem with Southgate. But, no, I'm joking. But if Ten Hag is sacked, the next manager, I want every fan to back. And I want every fan to realise it's not about a couple of transfer windows and things are fixed. We need to see progress. We need to maybe see a better style of football than what we're getting from Ten Hag. But I want a manager to be given 3 full seasons. 3 full seasons. And we assess that off progress. So that is why I want Ten Hag to be given 1 more season. And if we're sitting here in a year's time And Ten Hag got some good recruitment in the summer. He got some good players. We don't feel like he's getting the best out of them. He's too predictable. He's been figured out. He's not changing things. The style of play is poor and there's no progress. Then we can say we've given Ten Hag 3 seasons, let's move him on. But if Ten Hag is replaced, I want whoever that next manager is to be given time. I think that for me is so important. Let's give the manager time. Let's actually see if changes can happen. I want to see the next Manchester United manager given time. Guys, please do hit that like button and, of course, subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new and want to stay up to date. Zidane has INEOS energy. Look, the thing is, I think that INEOS, Blanc, when he was at PSG, was looking at Zidane. So there's definitely some credibility there in terms of, I'm sure, why wouldn't we want Zidane? Like, Zidane's a fantastic manager. He won like 4 or 3 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid. Zidane is great, but Zidane is not going to come near United. I think there's a small chance we could get Zidane in 3 years' time if we were this super team again and we were competing in the Champions League. But I don't think Zidane wants to take over a rebuild project. I think Zidane wants to manage a team that's already good. Zidane might take on the more chance of taking on the Liverpool job than the Manchester United job, and I don't think he speaks good English as well. Hello, Alice, new sub here. Wanted to ask, would you rather watch your tree grow or your... I know what that's going to sound like. Not, or do you know what? I almost fell for that. People need to forget Zidane. He's not coming, and Zidane never happening. Could you imagine with our crap squad around him? Zidane wouldn't last a second at Manchester United. He would not last a second. Erik Ten Hag is mainly questioned for the players he brought to the team, their price and performance rather than results, which is also questionable. Erik Ten Hag and board are guilty. I get this, and I get why people say this. The final decision is on who hired Anthony for 85 million. I get this. I get this point, but I want to reiterate this. Had Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada been here instead of John Murtough and Richard Arnold, well, as soon as Anthony price tag went over 45 million, Man United would walk away and Barada wouldn't let him spend more than 45 million on Anthony. I've also got to clarify this. Had Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada been at Manchester United, where's that 400 million spent? So Ten Hag really likes Martinez and he really liked Timber. Timber decided he wanted to stay one more season because Louis van Gaal threatened him. So we got Lisandro Martinez for about 50 million, but had we got him a month earlier, he would have been 40 million. So we would have got Lisandro Martinez in a little bit earlier, and we would have saved 10 million bringing in Lisandro Martinez. I'm sure we would have got Ericsson on a free, and I'm sure we would have got Malacia sorted. And then we went on pre-season with just those 3 signings, and everything else was a big mess and a panic. Let's say Frankie de Jong doesn't want to come to Manchester United. Absolutely fine. Well, and I think Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada would have said, no, let's not go for Casemiro. He's 30, he's aging. Let's look for someone a little bit younger. So maybe they would go. Maybe they'd have gone for Alexis McAllister. Maybe they would have, Dan Ashworth would have said, look, he's at Brighton, he can play DM, he can play centre mid, we were linked to him. Maybe they would have gone for an Orkun Koku, maybe they would have gone for like an Enzo Lafia, a bit more attacking-minded player, and then maybe gone for more of a 6. I don't know what they would have done. Maybe they would have gone for Cooper Miners, but they would have gone for someone. Maybe they would have said, look, let's see if we can get Tchouameni before we go to Real Madrid. I don't know. But they would have gone for another midfielder other than Casemiro. Casemiro, obviously, was one of the main reasons we had a good season last year, but we wouldn't have spent 60 million on Casemiro. Anthony price tag goes beyond 45 million. Omar Barada puts his foot down. Dan Ashworth has a list of right wingers up. I wouldn't be surprised if we went for Elise and triggered his £35 million release clause. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 years ago we triggered Elise's 35 million release clause. We got a midfielder that was a similar profile to de Jong. We got Malacia, we got Ericsson, we got Martinez all in one window while spending maybe 60 million less that window, which would have given us the funds to go for Harry Kane this window, get Kim and Jay in because we would have got a Merlin triggered his release clause, not gone for Mason Mount, and then maybe gone for Alexis McAllister 35 million had we had proper recruitment people. And I generally think our team could look super different. And people might call me crazy, but I think had we had Ashworth and Barada in 2 years ago, our starting a lineup could be Anana Delo, Kim Min-jae, Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw. Don't know who the 6 would be. I don't think it would be Declan Rice. So, but we'll say Kobbie Mainoo, Alexis McAllister, Bruno Fernandes, with Man United looking to get a Mats Wiefer sort of player this summer. At least say Rashford or Garnacho Kane. It could look like that. That's the thing, and that's a much, much better team than the one we currently have. And it would be probably 20 million less spent. So I think there's so many different ways that you can look at things and say, yeah, the recruitment under Ten Hag has been bad, 85 million on Anthony, and Ten Hag pushed for that. But ultimately, if we had proper people making decisions at the club, Omar Barada wouldn't let Man City spend 80 million on Maguire. Pep Guardiola really wanted Harry Maguire. Pep Guardiola was pushing and pushing and pushing for Maguire. The minute Maguire's price tag went over 60 million, he said, we're going to go get Ruben Diaz instead for 60 million. He said he's not worth 60 million. So, and Omar Barada, even though Pep pushed for Maguire, would not let Pep spend more than 60 million on Maguire. Do you think he'd let Ten Hag spend 85 million on Anthony? Absolutely not. We probably would have got Gakpo, if anything. At least he was one of the players we were looking at for 35 million, but maybe would have gone and got back Gakpo for 35 million, who isn't amazing, but he's better than Anthony, isn't he? And his statistics were very good. So I think you have to look at that and actually say that's poor decision on recruitment. And if you watch the Ollie interview today, again, Ollie told the club they could sign Haaland for 5 million. They had no interest. Ollie told the club they can sign Haaland for 20 million. They couldn't be bothered to deal with Mino Raiola. Manchester United could have signed Caicedo for 4 million. They couldn't. Man United scouts pick up Haaland. They pick up Caicedo. They pick up all these good names. And then the people that make decisions, Murta and Arnold, say no. So it's about the decision makers in the club. But the most important thing is those decision makers are being changed. All this awful recruitment we've made in the past that a lot of people will blame Ten Hag for, and of course he has a say, that's not Ten Hag's job. Ten Hag's job is to have a say on recruitment, but Ten Hag's job shouldn't fully be deciding who we bring in. That we need proper people to do that job, and that's ultimately what we'll get with changing Ten Hag as well. Southgate to United, I don't think there's anything in the Southgate to Manchester United rumours, and it has come out from unreliable sources as well. Unfortunately, how poor the post Alex Ferguson has been, it's gotten toxic. Another thing you've got to remember is not just recruitment's bad, not just that the players are bad, but the club has a very toxic environment, very toxic attitude. And Jim Ratcliffe admitted that. When Jim Ratcliffe was asked about Erik Ten Hag's future and if Erik Ten Hag's future is safe at Manchester United, he said, one thing I will say is when I look at Manchester United, lots of top managers have come here and they've not been successful. So we have to look at it and say, maybe it's not the manager, maybe it's the environment. And I think Jim Ratcliffe was absolutely spot on when he said that. 115 likes, not charges. Love that one from Stephanie. 115 likes. I was talking about the Premier League title race, so I do want to get back into the news. I'm going to get my screen up with you guys in a second. But I was talking about the Premier League title race, and I said maybe we should want Arsenal to win it, because Liverpool winning the league is like the worst case scenario ever. Maybe I should want Arsenal to win it over City, but I really don't. And I know we should like Arsenal more than Man City, and have a lot more respect for Arsenal and Liverpool than I do for Man City and what they've done and how Arteta's rebuilt the squad and what Klopp's done. I have a lot of admiration for Arteta and Pep, and I'm jealous of them. But it's like, if Arsenal win the league, we're never going to hear the end of it. Like, if Arsenal win the league, it's going to be everywhere. They're going to be annoying online. They're going to have massive celebrations. It's going to be absolutely mental. If Man City win the league, it feels soulless. You forget it happens. And it also, because we all know that even if they get away with the 115 charges, because we all know they're cheats, even if they get away with it, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel like as important. It's like, if Liverpool win the league, that is a massive achievement. If Arsenal win the league, that's a massive achievement. Maybe it's just me, but if City win the league, you forget about it within a day. Like, if Liverpool win the league, I'm thinking that's bothering me for a while, equaling 20 titles. If Arsenal win the league, I don't want to go on social media for at least a week. But if City win it, they have a poop, title celebration with worse atmospheres than funerals, and you forget it. You forget about it after a day. It feels soulless, and it also feels tainted because of the charges. So it's like, I don't want City to win the league, but if they win it, I don't feel it. Maybe that's just me. Like, if Arsenal or Liverpool win it, I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that as well. I do want to scroll down the chat as well. People say Klopp will be available next year. Imagine if Klopp had left. Never going to happen. But imagine if Klopp had actually left Liverpool because he wants to join the INEOS project at Man United, and he did this secret portrayal of Liverpool. Like, imagine the scenes. That would be amazing. It's amazing. Alice, just check this. We as Manchester United had world-class managers. The club ownership and fans have affected them. I wouldn't solely blame the fans. I think the club ownership has as well. I'm just scrolling through the chat as well. In the last few weeks, I've changed my view on Erik Ten Hag. I wanted to give him 12 months, but do not allow him anywhere near the new signings or allow him to coach them. I think if we can get good new signings, I think Erik Ten Hag can coach players. I think if we can get good new signings in that are coachable, Erik Ten Hag can do well at them. Erik Ten Hag's improved Diego Dalot. Erik Ten Hag's bringing out the best in Hojlund, Garnacho and Maino. And he's done very well with Martinez. He did well with Timber. He did well with Frankie de Jong. Erik Ten Hag, if Erik Ten Hag has good coachable players with the technical abilities to play his style of football, he can coach them and develop them into good players. Erik Ten Hag is a ceiling raiser, not a floor raiser. If players have all the capabilities to be a top player and can play the way Erik Ten Hag wants to play, he can bring them out of them. But if they don't, Erik Ten Hag struggles to get the best out of players that aren't good enough to play his football, which is a problem because most of the players at Man United aren't good enough to play his football and he can't get the best out of them. But if you are good enough to play his football and have the capabilities like Maino, Hojlund, Dalot, he can. That's how I feel about Ten Hag. If we can sign him the right players, I do think he can get the best out of them. I do think he can get the best out of them. Apparently 15 million to sack Ten Hag as well. Is that, if you sack Ten Hag and you bring in Zerbi, you've got to spend nearly 30 million on top of Dan Ashworth's gardening leave of 15 million as well, and all the other gardening leaves. It would be a bit of a risk as well. Erik Ten Hag, I just say give a temporary go in the new structure. If no improvement by Christmas, get rid. It's exactly. If worst case scenario, could get rid at Christmas. If there's someone else that pops up, but I also think it's going to be expensive. Elise always injured. Last season, Elise was barely injured, but this season always injured as well. Rashford's attitude is the biggest problem at the club. I disagree. Look, I don't think Rashford's been good enough this season. I think Rashford going to Belfast was an absolute disgrace and lying about it. But realistically, if we just get rid of Rashford and nothing else changes, we will still be awful. We will still have problems. So I think there's so many issues that, player attitude needs to improve, but I don't think we can pin it on one player. And I don't think we can pin one player to all the problems on. Just stop sacking managers, says Michael Jones. I agree with that as well. Ollie told the truth on the overlap. The management can't manage under the old regime. Ollie even backs Ten Hag. Can't see how people still want him out after hearing his interview. I think Ollie's interview, again, watching it today on the overlap, makes me have even more backing of Ten Hag and at least want Ten Hag to succeed. I think with 11 losses this season, how bad the football is, I will understand if INEOS do choose to sack him. But I also think we know how bad this club is run. I'd love Ollie to be given time. I'm very behind on the live chat as well. Alice, they blame Ten Hag for the leaky roof. Some people probably do. 19 likes away from 150 likes. So big up everybody in the chat. No one cares when City win it, so I don't mind it. People talk about our issues more than City's treble. Exactly. As a neutral, I hope it goes to the last 3 games of the season. I almost wanted to go to second last game of the season, and then we get a miracle win versus Arsenal, and we see Arsenal players crying at Old Trafford, second last game of the season. Arsenal are 1 point above. Picture how amazing this would be. Arsenal are 1 point above City and Liverpool, and they go to Old Trafford, which is the second last game of the season. And if they beat Man United and they win the next game, Arsenal win the title. And then all of a sudden, Anthony scores the jammiest 99th minute winner when the ref should have blown the whistle on 97 minutes. It's controversial. There's a handball in there, but VAR doesn't give it to handball. And Anthony scores the most controversial goal in football history in the 99th minute versus Arsenal, and they don't win the league, and they cry on the pitch at Old Trafford, and Arteta has a meltdown. That would be the best thing to come out of this season. And I can already feel Arsenal fans like saying, I hate you, Alice, right now in here as well. Arsenal are the lesser of 3 evils, though, but I do think that ending would be very entertaining as well. Ten Hag is too stubborn. Ten Hag doing a great job with Hojlund, doing a very great job in Hojlund. I don't rate Zidane. I just don't think Zidane's what we need. I think Zidane is someone you want to manage a good squad, not orchestrate a rebuild. And is Man United a good squad? No. Man United need a rebuild as well. Just scrolling through the chat as well. We have to back Erik Ten Hag to high heels, and let's see exactly how he does. There's no point Man United shortlisted Ten Hag replacements. I think the PR machine's doing big rounds to get fans anxious. We've got a lot of news indicating that Ten Hag will go, and a lot of news around new managers. But is that news just coming out because actually there's not really much news to talk about at United at the moment? So they're going to put that kind of news and information out as well. That's another thing to dive into. When is Mount coming back? Mount will be back after the international break. Let's actually get into that because we do have other news and information to get into. So I wanted to get into this. Manchester United CEO Omar Barada is already holding meetings with external contacts ahead of officially starting his role at Manchester United in the summer. Omar Barada is on gardening leave. He can't officially do anything, but he's already having contact, sort of preparing himself for the role, speaking to a couple of people, Dan Ashworth and stuff. And actually one report said that he has had contact with Zerbi over the potential Man United job, and that Zerbi's representatives have been contacted surrounding the United job to just say, look, you are a potential replacement. Again, don't know the reliability in that. In terms of INEOS's plans as well, we got more information from James Ducker, who said that Sergio Ratcliffe wants to appoint a technical director and a performance director at Manchester United. Jason Wilcox is the leading contender for one of the roles. It was also said that Manchester United have appointment have appointed Omar Barada as CEO, and Dan Ashworth is expected to follow as sporting director once the compensation package is agreed with Newcastle. Wilcox is expected to come in, Omar Barada is in, and Dan Ashworth will come in when compensation is agreed. It was then said that Ratcliffe and his INEOS team are looking to bring in a technical director and a performance director who would report into Dan Ashworth in a four-pronged approach to revamping the senior football setup at Old Trafford. It was then said there is thought to be a willingness to keep Darren Fletcher at Manchester United, but recognition from all sides that the current title of technical director is misleading and does not reflect his role as coach of the academy first team. Darren Fletcher is our technical director. Darren Fletcher just works with the academy. Just again shows how badly unorganised and run this club is. Darren Fletcher has a technical director role at United. He doesn't do that job. He works with the academy. Why is he our technical director? It again just highlights how badly the club is run. It was then said by James Ducker that Eric Ten Hag's future in Man United is in doubt. United's poor performance and worrying setup in a 2-1 defeat at home to Fulham is thought to have been dimly received, and the mood was not improved on Sunday when Ten Hag's side were comprehensively outclassed by Man City in their 11th league loss of the season. That was also said by James Ducker. Then on the injury front, it was said that Rasmus Hojlund is being looked at this week for a possible turn against Everton. Mason Mount not quite ready yet, but expected to be ready to play for United after the international break. Was the two fronts we had in terms of injuries and stuff as well. Big up everybody in the chat. Thank you very much, Joe, for the super chat. City winning is winning is soulless is so true. Forgot that they'd even won the treble. They are a plastic club, but given time they'll be legitimised. Yeah, I get that to an extent. It's like if Liverpool win something, you don't hear the end of it. If Arsenal win the league, we're not hearing the end of it. But City, people talk more about Man United than Man City when we're crap. It's crazy. Barada's the appointment that excites me the most. Only one coming in who's had success at the top club in sports is Alex. Yeah, I think Dan Ashworth's brilliant. I think that Jason Wilcox would be brilliant. I think Yugi Fiedon's brilliant. But Omar Barada's done it at the top of the top. He's done it at Manchester City, and he was at Manchester City from nearly the beginning, and he's been a big part of getting them where they are now. And I think to an extent, obviously, we're not jealous of the 115 charges or how tiny their fan base are, but I think we are definitely jealous of the success that Manchester City have had over the coming years, finishing above us every single season. So 100% agree. Mount was a bad signing. Do you know what? Yes and no. He was an incredibly stupid signing because you think, okay, well, we've spent 60 million on a guy that we could have got for 3, and he's started about 3 games this season. We might as well just got him for 3 because we've not used him this season. And I think that the money on Mount should have been spent on someone that can play as a 6 rather than someone that can play as an 8/10. So yes, but I think people underestimate Mount's importance. I think that Mason Mount, what he brings in terms of out of possession ability to cover ground, if he was fit, I think we would see his importance this season. Did I want us to sign Mason Mount? No. Has it been a massive waste of money because he would be 3 now? Yes. Do I think Mason Mount can add something to this current team? Absolutely. Have you seen our midfield? Mason Mount, I think, while I question if him and Bruno is really going to work, I think Mason Mount's played about 6 games for United. 3 of them I was really impressed by. 3 of them he was meh. But in the 3 of them he was meh, there were still about 5 players that were worse than him. And he's just playing in a poor side. I think Mason Mount's ability to press off the ball, his athleticism and his IQ and reading of the game is something that we really currently lack in this Man United squad, which is why I think Ten Hag wants him. Would I have signed him? No. Do I think he should have been priority signing? No. But I think I look at it and I think actually right now we do need Mason Mount. And people might disagree when I say that, but if you look at United right now and where we're at, we actually do need Mason Mount. Mason Mount would have improved us in the Manchester derby. If Mason Mount had played and not McTominay, if Luke Shaw and Malacia had been fit, so we didn't have to play Amrabat or Lindelof at left back, and if Rasmus Hojlund had been available in the Manchester derby, I think it could have been a very different game. I think it could have been a very different game as well. People were saying Southgate to Manchester United. Alice, what's the latest on that? What's your thoughts on that? There's nothing really in it. There's nothing really in it. Mark Ogden, and I will get the news up on the screen here. Mark Ogden, Twitter's going mental. Twitter's going crazy that Man United apparently going to sign Gareth Southgate. But look, I spoke to someone and they said that they're not looking or not interested in Gareth Southgate. But this is the news. I'm going to get this up on my screen for you guys. this is the news coming out. According to Mark Ogden, who's a tier 2 source of information, he is saying that new Roberto Zerbi, Thomas Frank and Gareth Southgate are being assessed as potential replacements for Erik Ten Hag at Manchester United if he leaves in the summer. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Man United, I doubt, are even looking at Gareth Southgate. If INEOS are looking at Gareth Southgate, oh my days, do you want us to suffer? We're going to have a team of 11 Maguires. Do you want us to suffer? I do not like Southgate. I do not rate Southgate. I don't think Frank is good enough, but I would prefer him to Southgate. Zerbi, I would rather stick with Ten Hag, but I'm not completely against Zerbi. But my days. That's all I can think of. Oh, my days. Do not even think about bringing Gareth Southgate in. I said no matter who the next manager is of Man United, I will just give them 3 years. I want to give them time. But if it is Gareth Southgate, you'd be lucky to get 3 months out. 3 months. I'll be very disappointed if we brought in Omar Barada, Ten Hag with INEOS, all this talk, and then we go and appoint Gareth Southgate. This is no disrespect to Gareth Southgate, but for me, he's not a top-level manager. He's a David Moyes in the sense of he's a floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser. He's a manager that can get the best out of a bad and mid squad and take them far. You know, he's a manager that can manage a mid-table side and make that mid-table side consistently mid-table and do the most with it. But he's not a manager that can take a mid-table side to a top of the league side. There's certain managers that can take a 20th place side to a 10th place side. Moyes, Southgate. But they can't take a 10th place side to a first place side because the style of football doesn't work. I would not be a fan of this at all. In the slightest. 115 likes. Let's go for 200 likes, people. Bish, bash, boss. If everything goes south, you can always employ me as manager. I'm very good at Football Manager 24 as well. Get players who are willing to follow the manager instructions, not players who decide what manager they want to manage them. And they just don't sack managers within 2 years of managing the club. We need to stop this sacking managers every 2 years. I do somewhat agree. Alice, you're over-analysing it here. I doubt Fletcher being named. That is the problem. The problem is how the ball keeps supporting player power. Yeah, I don't think Darren Fletcher's the problem. I'm just saying the fact that Darren Fletcher has a role that he doesn't do just shows the disorganisation within the club was more of my point as well. The academy is another aspect. Erik Ten Hag, given no credit for, didn't he take on more an expanded hands-on role with the youth? He has as well. I think Erik Ten Hag's done good work with the academy that nobody mentions as well. Done really good work, and Mount will come back for 15 minutes and then be out for the rest of the season. Mount is turning into Martial. Martial met Mount. He took his legs up and said, "Borrow my legs for the season, mate." That's what he did as well. If Liverpool win, I believe they match their amount of titles. Yeah, Liverpool cannot win the league. Just scrolling through the chat here, a little bit behind as well. Mount better than Kai, but I would not have signed any. Yeah, and Kai Havertz has been decent lately, and Mount is definitely a better player as well. And Arsenal and Liverpool were looking at signing Mount. Imagine if Mount had stayed fit and gone to Arsenal and Liverpool. I actually think he would have been a good player for them. I think the main thing with Mount is that he needs to keep fit. If that happens, he'll be a good player for us. I think so. I can see what he adds. His last season at Chelsea was atrocious, but so was everybody. It's like I remember, I think when the team is bad, like everyone was bad, but when the team is good, certain players shine. And Mount had been one of Chelsea's best players. He was Chelsea Player of the Season twice in a row before that as well. Nagelsmann, the only candidate that half interests me, yeah. To be honest, I'm not really interested in these candidates, yeah. Southgate's a championship manager, not a chance for Southgate. I mean, I don't believe we're going for Southgate, and I don't believe there's any reliability in it as well. Big up Noam, who's been a member for 12 months. Big up, been a member for a year. He says Erik Ten Hag in. Ragnick's perception is still correct. Deciding on the style you want to hire, the people to make that team. Ajax had a proper structure, we don't. You're absolutely spot on. Couldn't agree with you more there. Ralph Rangnick said it. Let's actually decide on the style we want to play, and then you hire people to make that team. Absolutely spot on, and I think that's what INEOS will do. Absolutely spot on. Big up Alex Marmon for the super chat as well. I said months ago that if we sat Ten Hag, I feared that we would consider Prattgate. Watch Rashford Maguire suddenly push for him too. My nightmare. I mean, if we go near Gareth Southgate, I would be absolutely livid. He's not good enough for the job. And I've said, look, I'm going to back INEOS and whatever they decide to do. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to back whatever manager they bring in for 3 years, even though I want Ten Hag to stay. But if they bring in Southgate, I'm sorry, I'm being a hypocrite. You no longer got my backing, because Thomas Frank, I'm not a big fan of. Roberto Zerbi, I think he's a decent manager, but I'd rather stick with Ten Hag. But I can be somewhat patient with those, particularly Zerbi. He's the best of the three. But Gareth Southgate, you're having a laugh. Gareth Southgate to Manchester United, you're having an absolute laugh. 36 likes away from 200 likes, 320 watching. Big up everyone in the chat. Mourinho, I do not want. Mourinho, I mean, I take him over Southgate, but not much. Rangnick's 4-2-2 football was beautiful, but people didn't see it. He's been doing a decent job at Austria as well. The thing is, Rangnick just realised that the players at United do not have the capabilities, the IQ, the legs, or anything to play the style of football that he wanted to play. We saw Man United play really good football for 30 minutes at home versus Crystal Palace. I thought, this is Rangnick ball. Rangnick was making us play good football. You could start thinking, yeah, Ollie was right to sack Ollie. Ollie was the problem. Then we saw that we played crap football for the rest of the season, and that is what the team do. Yeah, Rangnick got us playing good football for 30 minutes before these players were like, nah, not doing this anymore. I give up. Bosh. Gareth Southgate doesn't even play good football. So maybe our players would like Southgate because he doesn't play good football, and maybe our players are suited to the football that Southgate plays. To be fair to them. Rangnick is not a top-level manager. He had barely coached the 10 years leading up to the Man United job. Should have been an exec. Agree. I mean, the reason I was so happy at Ralph Rangnick coming to Manchester United was because he was going to come in and take that executive role. I didn't want Ralph Rangnick to come in and be manager. The reason, even though I thought he played good football, the reason I was so excited by Ralph Rangnick is I was like, oh my God, we're finally going to get a good executive in here. We're finally going to get someone good in this executive role. And that's what made me really excited over the Ralph Rangnick appointment. An executive that's good, this and that. So I think that's what makes it more disappointing as well, is that he actually came in as manager. He did his brilliant press conferences where he exposed half the squad, so big up Rangnick on that. But ultimately, we never got to see him in the role that we were excited for him to come in and do. He was never the executive as well. Lisandro Martinez is expected back a bit sooner than those expect. He could even be back by the end of March. So Lisandro Martinez, this is a big boost here. This is a big news boost here. So Lisandro Martinez was expected back in April, sort of mid-April. They reckon he could be back in the international break. He's actually recovering and is a lot closer to fitness than we think. So that's a massive boost, Lisandro Martinez. How many games have we got before the international break? Have we got Liverpool before the international break? I'm trying to think. So Martinez will miss the Everton and Sheffield United game. The Sheffield United game's been postponed, so he'll miss the Everton game. But apparently, Lisandro Martinez is going to be back by the 30th of March in time for Brentford, and he could be playing in our Chelsea and Liverpool Premier League games, which is a massive boost because we got Brentford, Chelsea, Liverpool, Bournemouth, and Newcastle in the Premier League all coming up. And he wasn't going to be expected back to that Newcastle game, but we might now have him for Brentford, Chelsea, Liverpool, which is massive. We've got Liverpool in the FA Cup next Sunday, which is that's going to be a little bit worrying. 2 before the international break as well. Ten Hag won a trophy in his first season. If we sign Southgate, sign some Sheffield United and Burnley players, would be more funny, honestly. We did win a trophy in the first season. Someone said the EFL Cup means nothing. I think the fact that we hadn't won a trophy in 5 years, it meant a lot. And you saw how much it meant to Liverpool. They were all crying, oh, look at our kids winning us this trophy. I think a trophy's a trophy. I think if you're winning trebles and Premier Leagues and all the other trophies, like the EFL Cup's not that deep. But if you've not won a trophy for a while, the EFL Cup is big. It is massive. Chelsea would have loved that trophy as well. So Mountain Martin is back after international break. Any idea on Wan-Bissaka? Wan-Bissaka expected back after international break. I'll tell you what, Wan-Bissaka coming back is just going to save us because we need a left back. Malacia has disappeared. Malacia, for all we know, could be in prison. So we need a fullback as well. Luke Shaw's basically going to miss the rest of the season. I knew Luke Shaw shouldn't have played against Luton. I knew it. I thought we're so silly risking Luke Shaw against Luton. I just knew he shouldn't play. But guess what? We play Luke Shaw versus Luton and he picks up another injury. Never expected that to happen. We all expected that to happen as well. But big up everybody in the chat. Big up everybody watching. I'm going to wrap up the live stream here. Please do hit the like button on the way out. Please do subscribe if you're new. I think this has been a really good live show. If you've just joined, scroll back to the beginning if you want my exclusive news on Zerbi. And then we had a bit of a convo. Thank you for watching. Bye.